Hey guys, Adam askcsradical here. So we're going to go through the spoilers of Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can because it is hot as crap in this room because it's getting really hot out. I don't have air conditioning in my apartment, and if I turn the fan on, it's going to be very noticeable, so I'm kind of baking in here. We'll see how fast we can get through here. So, like I said in the podcast, which I did a non-spoiler review, very quick, maybe like 3, 4, 5 minutes tops. This movie definitely started very slow. I'm going to just start right from the very beginning and work my way to the end. Obviously, we knew that Mysterio was going to be portrayed as a hero in this show. And the question really throughout this entire film was going to be how long does it go for until he turns? And for as long as it took until that turn was made, because unsurprisingly, he became the villain. I thought there was like a 10% chance that he might actually be a hero. They might swerve us and keep him a hero the entire time and introduce a new villain. But instead, we did eventually get the turn. The entire first half of the movie, I got to tell you though, up until that turn was actually quite slow and not that memorable. I mean, few jokes here and there. Obviously, a little bit of recollection from a bit of reminiscence of obviously Tony Stark. And they definitely played the role of, okay, well, this is post Endgame. We're definitely still getting things moving. I will admit the idea of the way that they showed, I guess, everybody coming back from the blip, as they called it. All these people coming back 5 years later to school, and some of their friends are now 5 years older than them. And the funny part of like a basketball game being played, and then the marching band suddenly comes on 5 years later, and they're and the basketball player comes back and everybody's running into each other. That was really funny. The newscast they did at the beginning was kind of funny. Makes you wonder if those guys will be people you'll see at the Bugle pretty soon. Obviously, it's a spoiler podcast, so we know what the Bugle means. But there's a little bit of interesting fun there. But generally speaking, the first half was not that great. I got to tell you, this whole love triangle thing with that douchebag other guy, was it Mike was his name? I can't remember what his actual name was, if that was it or not. That whole thing was kind of stupid. The lead into all the fights with the elementals was kind of just meh at best. Like, I found myself being really bored, and I'm sitting there actually thinking in the theater, am I really going to hate a Spider-Man movie, or at least just be like not that interested by the end of it? Because the elementals were just bland and boring, and I think that should have been a clear giveaway that something was going on. But, you still left hope that, maybe Sandman shows up with this, or, who knows what else they can bring into the fray. But instead, we just keep getting more and more and more and more, and you're still waiting for the turn. And then finally, throughout the film, we talk about Tony handing off the security system to Peter Parker, which was a set of glasses. And he uses it irresponsibly at one point, where he nearly kills basically everybody with a missile. And, he's sitting there being like, maybe I wasn't supposed to be the one for it. Like, Tony was just giving this to me so I would give it to somebody who needed it. And it turns out the entire time that Mysterio does not actually exist. In fact, it's just, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a guy that used to work for Tony way back when, before the movies really got going. And Tony took his projects and turned it into a joke. And it was all like AR stuff, so virtual reality, basically. So all the elementals, the Mysterio thing, all of it was completely fake, not real. None of it was real. Even the Mysterio flying around was not real. Which is strange, because I wonder how he was floating around in the movie, because they show that the Mysterio actually flying around and fighting the elementals towards the final fight scene, like the giant motherfucker they summon in London, it's not him. He's still sitting in a bridge just dealing with it. So I'm wondering, how the hell was he floating? That's the one curious thing I have. So I guess, was that fake the entire time? But how would that be fake? Because he would have to say those lines on the spot. How are they pulling that? I don't know. They didn't do the best job of explaining it. That's probably like the one complaint I really had about Mysterio, is that they did a kind of piss poor job about fully fleshing out how he was faking everything. But at the very least, for all the fights, we knew it was all AR. But you see some of the characters. There was one specifically they pointed out that was a doctor during the first movie. or a scientist during the first movie, or something like that. But all the people, they were basically like former members of Stark Industries that, just wanted revenge on him. And now that Stark was dead, they wanted to be able to take over things. So when Peter gives him the glasses, that's the literal turn. Like, I thought, okay, maybe he'll wear the glasses, and because we still thought that he was some interdimensional being. We didn't know the fact that he was just a former Stark employee. So I'm thinking, okay, he'll put the glasses on and he'll think, oh, I need to be the one to make sure that this world doesn't fall the same way that my Earth did. And instead, it's just literally the second Peter leaves after he gives him the glasses, bam, like that. And it's completely floored. And it was the same with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, where it just threw you for a loop, just how quickly it changed into the direction they took it with. And I liked it. I really did like it. And as soon as this moment hit, everything else got so much better. The explanation started being a lot cooler. The way everything was being shot looked so much cooler. And then when you get to the end, the last little bit, the point where he fucks with Peter Parker so hard was so cool. The fact that it was almost like, oh my god, what's the race in Captain Marvel, the Shapeshifters? But you know who I'm talking about. I don't know why I'm forgetting the Skrull. There we go. It almost kind of seemed like that. It's like, okay, what's real and what isn't now? And they play that so well. So before we get to the final fight, I wanted to note something that really got my attention. There's a point, obviously, where you see on the jet as Peter is developing his new suit, he's acting very Tony Starkish in it. And at the end of the movie, I turned to my friends and I said two things. One, and I'll talk about it later, was the sign towards the end of the post-credit scene. But the second thing was about this moment where he's being very Starkish. I turned to my buddies and I said, you know what I think's going to happen down the line in these movies? They are, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think they have been plotting the seeds for this for a while, because I don't know if Spider-Man was necessarily a big deal in Tony Stark's life in the comics. So what I think is happening here is because of the way that this young Peter Parker has been growing up almost with Tony Stark as his father figure. And Tony has really taken a shine to the kid and even gave him this technology that basically gives him the keys to the fucking planet. I think that sometime, and it might not be Phase 4, it may be all the way in Phase 5, because I'm pretty sure we're going to see Galactus as the big villain by the end of Phase 6 if they're going in the 3-phase direction that the last 3 have done. I believe that Peter Parker is going to be the next Iron Man. And what will happen is that Miles Morales will be introduced for the first time on film, and we will have a new Spider-Man as Peter Parker takes the throne, the Iron Man throne. The literal Iron Throne, I guess. I'm about to Google something because I've actually never thought about. I wonder if Peter Parker has ever been Iron Man. And the answer to this appears to be, not counting the Iron Spider suit, no. But the Iron Spider suit is pretty damn close. I mean, maybe it has happened, but like I'm just reading like Cliff Notes of shit. And clearly, as I'm seeing some articles here, I'm not the only one that believes this. And I think the seeds have been planted to make it pretty damn obvious that that's what they're pushing towards. I think that is a fucking really cool idea. To have Iron Man sticking around, and to also do something different with it. And that's what I think is going to make Phase 4, 5, and 6 so interesting. Assuming it's 3 phases again. Is that we're going to see a lot of characters that we've never seen before. And we are also going to see characters used in ways that we've never seen before. The idea of Peter Parker being Iron Man is something that would be unfathomable to people. Assuming that, he's never been in the comics. I haven't researched so far in that, I can be 100% sure that he's never been. But if that's the case, how cool is that? What a great idea that is. And it makes sense in the story. In this specific story. And the idea to get Miles Morales his first chance to shine on a live-action Spider-Man is even cooler to me. As long as they bring in some fucking Black Cat stuff, because Lord knows I want to see that shit. I'm amazed that Black Cat has never been in a movie before. But as we get to the end, we get this Inception-style fight scene where it's him fighting all these drones just using his spidey sense. or as Peter Tingle, based on how the movie calls it in the entirety. Poor bastard. That might actually be my favorite shot, my favorite scene in an MCU movie, period. That shot was so fucking cool. I was mesmerized by every moment of that scene. It was like watching a slow motion, it was like playing a video game almost, watching that. Inception like, just unreal. Well shot. Fantastically done. And in the end, he wins and presumably kills Mysterio. We get to the end. Everything seems cool. MJ's obviously known about him being Spider-Man for a long time. And we get this confirmation of, okay, well, we don't know what's coming next. And then all of a sudden, we get a report. And it's film of the man who played Mysterio lying and saying that Peter Parker killed him. And he's the reason for all the drones attacking and all this shit. And I say Peter Parker because he actually reveals Spider-Man's secret identity. And then, cue J. Jonah motherfucking Jameson. Still being played by J.K. Simmons. My God, I have never heard a theater erupt that loud. And I sat day one for Avengers Endgame. I think people got more loud for Jameson than they did for something like, say, Cap holding Thor's hammer. That might have been one of the loudest moments I've ever seen, and I marked the fuck out for some J.K. Simmons. And because he's talking like Alex Jones, like when he did in the video game. I am so goddamn hyped for that. I don't know what they're going to do, though. How are they going to have... Because I'm trying to think, I'm trying to remember if I've ever played a game where Peter Parker's identity was revealed as being Spider-Man. Because I don't remember in the TV shows back when I was a kid that happening. I don't remember any games where that's happened. So this feels like new territory. And I'm wondering what villain comes out in the woodwork. I did say... but first, before I get to that, I did say to my friends, did you notice the Phase 4 reference? And they go, what do you mean? It's like, well, there's a sign where him and MJ get dropped off, and you see, we can't wait to show you what's next. And it looks like a construction project, but it has 1, 2, 3, and then question mark, which we assume means Phase 4. Some people think it says it's a reference to Fantastic Four. I don't think they would do that in that aspect, because what would be the point of pointing 1, 2, and 3 there? I think 1, 2, and 3 would be the nod to the phases. And because this movie is the transition into Phase 4, it makes more sense in that aspect. It could even be both. Who knows? But my money would be on it just being a nod to the phase changing. But the last thing I said to my friends is, you know who I think makes sense being the villain for this? And I think it's going to be Norman Osborn. And we bring in a new Green Goblin. Because Osborn is the kind of guy that would use... Because, I mean, even in the new Spider-Man game, he's the mayor of Manhattan, and he uses, the violence going around as a way to try to perpetrate him continuing to be mayor. You could see a similar story like that where he uses Spider-Man as an outlet to get him more power, because we haven't seen Osborn yet in this Tom Holland stuff. We haven't even seen Harry yet. So the opportunity now arises for Osborn to come out and try to be the pariah, the savior of the people. Because I don't think that it's going to lead into a symbiote. It doesn't make sense for Venom and Carnage to come in at this point. It might make sense for a Kingpin, but I would still go in the round of Osborn. But I think you could go either or. That was the one suggestion that my friend gave that I thought, okay, yeah, Kingpin's got some ideas in there too. But all in all, I would go with Osborn, and I think it makes sense because I think it's been long enough since we've had a crazy Green Goblin that I think it's time for another, and I'd be curious to see how that goes. But who knows? I mean, there's a lot of options they could go in. I don't want to see them go back to a small villain again, like they did with Vulture. I want to see a big one. I want to see a Goblin or a Doc Ock. I want to see one of those back again. So, with that all being said, like I said before in the non-spoiler review in the podcast, it was a 7 out of 10 movie because the first half was so bad to me that even an amazing second half couldn't quite save it. It's still good, But if you're comparing it to other 8, 9s, and 10s that I've ever had when it comes to the Marvel movies, they just don't compare because they're a lot better all around. But in terms of everything that happens in the movie, and I apologize if I left something out important, put that in the comments below if I missed something. But for everything that I did see, especially at the post-credits, for God's sakes, they've left a foundation that I cannot wait for Phase 4. And we don't even know what the first movie is going to be at this point. We assume it's going to be Black Widow, which is going to be a prequel anyway. But, you know, we know that there's going to be a Doctor Strange 2. We know there's going to be a Guardians 3. We've heard there being, I can't think of the name of it. I think it's the Chinese one. But we don't have any knowledge of what's coming out. I'm sure San Diego Comic-Con will change that real quick. But we don't know where it's going to go from here. And I can't help but be unbelievably excited now. Because with the inclusion of Jameson and such an interesting storyline as Peter's identity being revealed, not to mention my theory, and others clearly now, that Spider-Man might be becoming Iron Man soon. And the other post-credit scene of Nick Fury just being in space and the real him, or sorry, the him on Earth just being a Skrull the entire time along with Maria, I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's just him taking a vacation, but they're in space, so I'm wondering why. I'm wondering if it has to do with Captain Marvel. I'm wondering if it has to do with something else they're seeing. It could lead into Fantastic Four because they could be looking at some object out there that would lead to giving the Fantastic Four their powers. It could even be Galactus. I don't know if we're that close, though. Who knows? But it leaves so many doors open. And for a movie to transfer into a new phase, that's exactly what you want. You want there to be a change of the guard and something new coming. So for that alone, it's still a good movie and does its job. But we cannot mistake the fact that the first half is just terrible in comparison to so many other movies. So like I said, 3.5 stars, 7 out of 10, whichever way you want to look at it. Still a good movie. Still enjoyed myself. Just wish I could have enjoyed it all the way through like I did the first Spider-Man. But either way, I digress. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share this video if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more. The plan is sometime in the next week or so, I want to get a full review for the entirety of the spring anime season as well. If you're anime fans, that's something I want to get into as well. Hopefully we get around to that on the weekend if I get a chance to record. Otherwise, I'll just figure it out when I can get a chance to do it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.